I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. Andrew Quall, we are coming off the heels of yet another successful Cookies Hoops Classic. The third one is in the bank. Immediate takeaway from Saturday's action. Let's hear it.
The glow. I'm still feeling the glow. The ballers. The quality of basketball. Just insane. It's not like your boy Elon Musk jumping up and down with his hands up in the air, man. Dudes were hooping, scooping. It was awesome.
Your Clyde impersonation does not fall short.
No. Yeah. It's always been one of my strengths. It was great.
Were you freestyling? Were you about to deliver bars?
I was about
Scooping, hooping,
juking. Yeah, I did just rap, and it was. We could have used some of that during the tournament. I felt like the energy was an 11, but we could have gone to a 12, 13, 14. It leaves room for even more joy, I think.
Some salt and pepper shooping. But yeah, that was super fun. Thank you to everybody who came out and everyone who helped make it happen.
Shout out to Luch. Shout out
also,
to Doe.
Really hard, our guys, really hard to miss on a day that was arguably the nicest of the year. So, when you're doing an outdoor event, your eyes are on the calendar coming up. And if it's showing rain or gray skies, it's a little stressful. But like the 4 days going in, it was just 75 and beaming. Did not disappoint.
It was like the Celtics looking at the field and being like, we got nothing to worry about. Brunson's hurt. Embiid is hurt. Giannis is hurt. We're just coasting until Saturday.
But there was no asterisk on this tournament, unlike the Celtics' quote-unquote championship.
Right. Participants were our friends at Supreme, at Scar's Pizza, at Clandestino, Hoop City.
Hoop York, who won the women's bracket. Richardson won the men's. Supreme came in second, and the Buckets and Brunch crew of women ballers also showed out, and they went to the finals against Hoop York. A lot of really good players out there this year.
Yeah, Colleen Estrada and Clandestino are close to our hearts, but not close to that trophy.
I mean, Kalina had won a year ago. This time came back. Solid team, but Hoop York was gnarly. Their big was a problem. She was shooting threes. She was playing in the post. Just like, I mean, I saw the sneaker sizes coming in, and I was like, oh, they have a tall woman in the paint coming in.
Who knew how to play as a big. Just kind of like deflecting rebounds to her teammates, kind of like not moving too much. Wasn't like a stretch, but just dominating under the rim.
Yeah, I saw one of the guys from the winning team afterwards, and he was remarking about how he was very familiar with her play from other tournaments and that she didn't lose that often, which kind of check.
But as with the other tournaments that we've thrown, the basketball was secondary. It was a hang. Friends got together. There was pizza to eat. There's merch to be given away. Our buddies, ex-guests of the show, showed out. Kids were running around. It was kind of like a beautiful day. Someone asked me just like, what is this thing? And I'm like, it's for a bunch of friends to get together and chill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks to Peter Pan Donuts, Greenpoint's finest.
Great
I had pastries.
Woo.
Yeah, but you were jumping like Elon Musk out there, so you just worked it off.
I just burned those calories right away.
Immediately. Yeah. And then pizza from Scars, delicious as always. Always a favorite of the pod.
Shout out to Jorge. Went in a second. There was no pizza to be had if you were 5 minutes late.
Yeah, I got a slice, went back for slice number 2, more slices. Whoop, no dice.
Stacks, right. That was awesome. And shout out to Nike for making everyone look incredible. Shout out to all the people that helped us. I don't know. It is no small task to throw one of these events, no matter how modest we may sound, but everyone who helped us was very kind.
Yeah, when we were talking about it afterwards, there was some people doing little interviews and like, well, where do you want this to go? I'm like, well, wherever it goes, I just want the same people. I want our guys, Jacoby and Pablo, cookies, day ones, people who listen to the pod, people who, buy a hat or a t-shirt, people who are our friends from, the last couple decades being around.
Shout out to
like that's who I want there.
Yep. Kay's been at all of our tournaments, every single one. Just chilling, and yeah, we're getting old. Time flies, man. Karl Anthony Towns is almost 30. Yo,
so
Jalen Brunson Jr. is about to run the Garden.
Well, moving along to non-basketball issues, because that was sort of basketball, but not totally basketball, but we had to talk about it anyway. Here's a better segue than the shitty one I just made. So one of the teams that performed really well got 3 victories, 2 victories in the round robin stage, then one a round to get to the quarterfinals, was from Time Again, which is right around the corner. We went afterwards and grabbed a couple drinks there. There's people who would know from New York, that's been the place to be over this summer. And Vampire Weekend threw a secret show there, I want to say on
Thursday
or Friday. And I think it started at 5 p.m.
A Sunset
and
Gorilla
the band went
show.
down there.
Yeah. They were supposed to play 3 songs. They played like 11.
And the band rocked. People were there. They had t-shirts with our buddy Despot, also known as Alec, his real name. And They made merch with his face on it. And he was at our tournament rooting on his squad. And then he went to the concert at MSG, and you may have seen him eating an Italian meal on stage. You also went to MSG. Why don't you tell us about the experience, Andrew?
Well, Despot had performed. He's a rapper extraordinaire. So he had opened for Vampire Weekend last time they did an MSG stand. So they used him. They're close friends, and they used him as an extra in a performance that coincided with a cover of Scenes from an Italian Restaurant by Billy Joel. I went with our buddy Pablo. I don't know where to start with this shit, man. I have not been to the Garden since the Pacers series, when it was all boarded up and like pasted over. It's been under construction for a few years to various degrees, and they unleashed it, and it is like a modern utopian kind of like rendering in AI. Everything is extremely clean. It's new, a bit ergonomic. There's some like curvilinear forms, not to make a Vampire Weekend joke about skating in a Frank Gehry skate park. But there was a Roberta's, shout out to Brandon. There was a Roberta's Pizza there. There was Los Tacos #1. It was a mall. And I've never experienced this as a New Yorker going to the Garden my whole life, back in the Ewing years. And I was talking to Pablo, and I was like, it brings me a certain amount of joy to have like nice things for New York City. But the melancholy there is just like, my memories are gone. The Garden is gone. It is not what I remember. It's better now. It's more usable now. There's a level of dignity there that I really appreciate. But my memories are just toast, man. This used to be kind of like a shitty block. Now there's a beautiful Roberta's Pizza rooftop.
Yeah, I feel that way about New York in general a lot, because it's this compounding of memories upon the same finite space.
Mm-hmm.
Where like, okay, so this block on Ludlow Street between Houston and Stanton, like how many permutations of my life have I hung at certain places on there that are now replaced by other ones?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and they do disintegrate because of that.
And so do we.
And we definitely do as well.
You know,
But it's this thing of like, wait, remember that bar Angel? Where was that again? I kind of forget. I remember it now. Or I don't know, there's so many of them. And it's like whether it was like a fight with, a girlfriend at the time, whether it was a night out with the boys, whether something funny happened or something scary happened, after a while they just kind of fade into the background because it is literally a different place. It's like you're traveling, but you're totally static.
especially if that point comes across so viscerally at MSG, because I remember when I went to see Latrell Sprewell drop like 28 threes in a playoff game. The LJ 4-point play, Patrick Ewing getting hurt. These are all like bookmarks in my life. Linsanity, for sure.
The one core Andrew Quo memory.
It's the
The
house that
true
Lynn built.
core.
But time lurches on. You may be Al Pacino and you may see the light, and there's nothing after the present. So he's warning us to beware of what's next and enjoy the present
Have a boner baby while you can.
and prove that your boner still works. To have a baby at the age of the ripe old age of 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. But
I'm 100 years old, but the dick works. Let's drop a baby. I won't be here for it, but I'm wealthy. So the baby is taken care of. But I really was just proving that I'm a virile man.
shoot your shot, man. And stop glazing the elderly, please. But like, it was my immediate critique of the new MSG, where this Vampire Weekend show was, not beautiful enough. I was like, yo, if we're gonna do this, like, I know the Oculus has issues. It has like flooring issues. It has cleaning issues. It's aging poorly, but it is a stunner, right? It is modern. There's a distinct point of view. MSG is nice. If you see it, you're gonna be like, whoa, this is glowing. This is like white and sparkling. But it is not a showstopper like even James Dolan's Sphere is. So my complaint is like, if we're gonna hurtle towards the future, let's get futuristic, baby.
Right. I mean, I feel like you spend a lot of time thinking about those like Twitter accounts that are neoclassicists.
I love
or
those are
I guess not even neoclassicists, hyperclassicists, the ones who are retrograde in that way.
They're dog whistles for racist. It's great.
100%. That's their point.
Yeah.
But they're hyper Eurocentric. That why don't we make Gregorian churches anymore? It's like, well, we did those. Yeah, but why'd we stop?
I'm just an appreciator of art. Why can't we make these cathedrals and these sculptures like the Romans and Greeks? I'm like, there's a lot of people in Asia doing sick stuff. The Middle East has produced some of the most wonderful architecture in civilization.
Yeah, but what about Michelangelo?
Yeah. What about
the
Notre
marbled
Dame?
male form?
Yeah.
But that idea, right, is like, is MSG not even trying for that? Did they just go for
usability?
Usability.
It's like there's certain churches, right, in New York, and I would consider Yankee Stadium one of them. When they remodeled and built a stadium right next to the old stadium, I was like, "Oh, we're gonna make this like Camden Yards, not with the oysters, just with the beautiful ballpark, with like character, with imperfections, all of these things." Nope, they just remade Yankee Stadium, but nicer. It is not unique. It is not like a must see for architects. It is just a luxury.
I mean, I don't know. I think when you look at downtown New York around City Hall and you have those kind of Gothic buildings, whatever you would specifically call them, I'm not sure if Gothic is right, but that's the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, there are some ones that are more modern, but that specific area is very much rooted in like European classicism.
Mm-hmm. Some of it, yeah, and distinctly and beautifully. I'm not mad at those Law and Order shots of them walking up those stairs with those columns.
It's like Law and Order. Everything is either shot there or in Greenpoint. Greenpoint, it's perfect. It can be any neighborhood you want,
There was
as long as they have aluminum siding.
a murder at Chrissy's Pizza. Beautiful slice. There's red sauce everywhere.
I guess they're opening on Nassau. That's the word on the street.
I mean, we'll get to that when it actually opens, but I love the introduction of the character of the reluctant pizza celebrity. Love it. But we'll get to that. Chrissy's Pizza for another day. I want to get back to Vampire Weekend because a lot goes on. I have some medium, lukewarm to hot takes with that band.
That's a large spectrum.
It depends. Oh, let me drop them on you, and you'll tell me what they are.
That's a funky spectrum, my friend.
You tell me how hot they are.
Okay.
I think they are the best band of the century. I think they embody what this century is talking about. There have been great bands in the last 24 years, but that band talks about the art form of music and has produced the best music of anybody I can think of.
They've also produced a multi-time Cookies Hoops podcast guest in Chris Thompson.
Huge Nets fan. She's been trying to shake the curse of New Jersey for quite a while now.
I mean, he carries with him the lineage of Jamie Fike and the fighting Nets of yore.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, going to that show, I had seen them 20 times or something. I'm a fan. And they had started doing this thing where, so they played Saturday night and Sunday matinee. They always tip their cap to like a punk tradition of like an all ages matinee. I saw them at Webster Hall doing an all day thing where they served Essa bagels and pizza, whatever, Bleecker Street pizza. And they fuck around with the idea of different kind of cultural signifiers in punk, jam band, hippie, world music, all these things. And so they did no repeats, which kind of always annoys me because it assumes everyone likes all your music. It's kind of like a gimmick that I don't love. Someone should be able to go to one show and experience a vision, like a stand-up show. It's like they did the same routine. I'm like, yeah, it's the same every night. I like that discipline more than like, we're going to play something different because we get bored and we want you to come to both. Anyway, so me and Pablo went Saturday, and they have started a new tradition, which is their encore, or they start on Sunday by taking requests from the crowd. And it's kind of staged, kind of not. But they'll be like, okay, who wants to hear what? Oh, Joker Man? Okay, we got some Bob Dylan, and they'll run through a few bars. Like, Don't Stop Believing. Okay, let's try that, which they kind of crushed. Sum 41, whatever. And I thought they had tanked their encore. They had held some hits back, maybe for Sunday, but they didn't play all their noteworthy songs. They have many. And they started going through these lazy covers, and people were booing them. Some people were saying Bruce because they do famously play a Bruce Springsteen cover. But also,
was it actual booing though? Or was it just Bruce that is being interpreted as booing?
I think it was booing because people were leaving cursing to themselves. People were leaving in droves, just being like, ugh, just like grumbling, So I was like, oh, those boos were kind of real.
But what was the source of malcontent that they didn't play the hits?
20 minutes into the encore, it was clear that they were not going to play a medley of hit songs to take them out because there's an 11 o'clock curfew. And they were kind of doing a poor job at the covers, or the selections were not interesting, and people just emptied out. So I read that as booing, and they had already done the Bruce Springsteen cover. But I thought the idea of tanking a show was interesting because Ezra is a known discontent. He's smart enough where he's grouchy, and he lets that grouchiness through, obviously with Time Crisis and all that, his podcast. And I thought it was interesting, not only as a band who tanks at MSG on a Saturday, but who it's coming from. Because when they dropped in the mid-aughts, during the height of indie sleaze, The accusation was they were basically a Paul Simon cover band. They took Graceland and then made it their own. So everyone's like, "Oh, I'm not into that like Cape Cod white yacht, rich kid, private school, Paul Simon stuff, Upper East Side, all that." And that was a knock on them until they started like relentlessly putting out great albums again and again. And then he has mentioned how grouchy he is with that comparison, being like, "We do not sound like the band you think. Maybe a song or two." And I'm like, maybe a dozen songs or so, but I love it. It's wonderful. Shout out to Rostam. But like them going through covers, I thought was smart. I hate that word, but also interesting, especially in the age of aggregation and AI and whatever. Like, I am just a person who knows everything about music. You want to hear late career Bob Dylan? You want to hear scenes from an Italian restaurant? I got you, because I am just a vessel for your memories. And I thought that was interesting.
Is it possible that the crowd was not booing, but saying "Boone" for Josh Boone of the New Jersey Nets of the early 2000s?
Did you have to Google Josh Boone? Because, I mean, he's Connecticut, right? Like, is there another
He
player?
was.
Yo, you should have went Mookie Blaylock. Mookie, right?
Boone was more of a deeper cut, if that's what we're doing here.
Yeah. I mean, an extremely deep cut. But, you know, I think I'm digging a little bit. But, like, Vampire Weekend has flirted with the idea of being a jam band, right? And jam band's not, I'm not talking about the Grateful Dead, even though Mark Ronson opened the show with, like, Grateful Dead music. Not Fish. I'm talking, like, the jam bands like Dispatch and who sell out Madison Square Garden now 5 dates in a row, that we don't necessarily know about. And I think Ezra's trying to mine that scene as a joke, whatever. He has his feet in many worlds. But what is a jam band but just our projections of what a band we want should be? I think a jam band is the ultimate crowd service situation where they give the crowd exactly what they want over and over. And the songs don't really matter. The lyrics maybe matter less. And it's more of a vibe. And what if Ezra's like, "Yeah, with Father of the Bride, we gave you our jam band album, but we're going to embody the ethos of what you want, which is just a jukebox."
I mean, it's interesting that you've described their approach as tanking, only because we could also say that jam bands are the ultimate in fan service.
They are, but they
But
didn't
people were
didn't
booing.
jam. They literally
So
didn't jam that way.
So is the issue here that they attempted to jam band but didn't quite jam enough?
I think they had some jam band moments during their set, but my thought was they're literally trying to figure stuff out and improvise, but not in the language you want. So everyone's like, "Can you extend that so we can like really get into the groove?" And they're like, "We're actually going to get to the bottom of that and just figure out stuff that has been predetermined. A script has been written, but we're just going to follow that script from memory." Sort of like when you go into, I'm reading too much into this. When you go into MSG and you start following the script of an encore, another encore, when you stand up in the fourth quarter, when you boo the opposing team, these are just all kind of actions I blindly go through when I sit at MSG. And Vampire Weekend was kind of saying, "Fuck you."
I'm trying to draw the comparison to restaurants when
And a scene
they
from an
have
Italian restaurant.
exactly they have a menu item or menu items that are incredibly popular, and you'll go there and be like, "Yeah, we don't have that tonight." Like, well, but I came here for that. I came here for the short ribs, sir.
Yeah.
Like, it's always on the menu. Well, it isn't. Oh, well, what else do you have? And it's like this discontent. But I know you guys can make good food, but I can't, I wanted to wet my whistle. I wanted that short rib, and it's not on the menu. And I don't know. I feel like you went to Vue d'Or. Is that the
The
right
Vodor. Yeah,
pronunciation?
yeah. I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh, go off.
And
Go off. Yeah.
but I'm saying their menu was. I haven't been there enough to know what the hits are. You recommended some dishes, and it's like fixed menu, appetizer, entree, or main. Depending on how francophile you are, and a dessert. And it's super French, and they don't really do a la carte there, from my understanding. You couldn't necessarily drop in and just order a wine and a dessert. But I could be incorrect. But
They're still trying to figure it out. I when I went, it was a la carte.
oh, when I went there, it seemed to be just fixed menu. But
Oh, they maybe changed
I
it. It
don't
was a
know.
couple weeks after I went when they were
Yeah,
just figuring it out.
yeah. This was a couple weeks ago. So at that point, I believe that was all they were offering. Maybe you could have said, "Hey, I just
Yeah.
want that," and there could have been another option. But
Yeah.
it was presented as like, "Here's the fixed menu, boom, boom, boom,"
Yeah.
and it's that same kind of thing. Like, well, I don't know this restaurant, so I'm not sure I actually want one of your desserts. I think I'd rather try something else.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like they make the rules.
I mean, I love my favorite, as you know, I love a restaurant. Goddamn. And it's like
Sorry.
it's a performance, right? It is like it is not just a food. If someone's just like, well, the steak was kind of undercooked, I'm like, fuck the temperature on your steak. Was the vibe good? What was the feeling? Was the service kind of a certain way? Was it exciting? And I get weird about it. I love that shit. And it is more a performance than like a utility. If I eat at home, it's also a bit of a performance, but also I just eat over the sink, man. Just throw that beautiful French food into my face over the sink. But I think the expectations, to your point, of a performance musically or culinarily have kind of overlap because there's crescendos, right? There's the beginning, there's the main, and then the dessert, the encore. It's supposed to uplift you, you know? Um, and Vampire Weekend, to draw that kind of correlation, gave you a little bit of delicious stuff, maybe gave you a bite or two of what they're famous for, and just took their dessert and threw it on the ground.
Well, I guess I'm thinking that this has always been the case. I bet if you went back to the caveman era and someone's like, you have to go over there, they're smoking mammoth. The smoked mammoth is insane. And you go there and like, no, we just have hedgehogs today. It's like, come on, dude. Where's the mammoth? And this is probably an ununique thing that's gone throughout the history of humanity. The expectations unmet. This is not
Scarcity.
a modern phenomenon, right? But I also do think about the sort of current state of like internet food, of foods that go viral. Like you've got to go to this spot and you get this dish, and then here's the image of it, the whatever syrup being poured over whatever thing, or being engulfed in flames. And again, this goes from being something that was discussed and in the past, but now, well, if you go there, you got to get the shot because otherwise you didn't go. So if you went to a place and you saw a Vampire Weekend and you didn't get the money shot, you didn't get the song you wanted to hear, you go to the restaurant, you didn't get the dish that was on fire.
Listen,
Were you even there?
I'm
Were you there?
I'm gonna wait an hour in line for Dominic Ansel. Just get a coffee and maybe like a scone. It's like, well, you just waited an hour. You're not gonna get the new invention, whatever, like the cronut. It's like, no, I just kind of want an iced tea. Like, then what the fuck are you doing?
I mean, even like Chez Matant, which we love, one of our favorite restaurants.
Excellent.
You didn't get the pancakes. You didn't
Oh,
put the pancakes on your feed. No pun intended.
I was gonna be like, you didn't get the Caesar salad?
No, well, right, but I mean that's a different one. But if you go to their tagged photos, it's 85% of them are pancakes.
Yeah.
Because that's what you go there to get the photo of.
Yeah. And there's a beautiful thing in this idea that we're talking about. We're circling the idea of tanking and scarcity. And like, I went to the New York Film Festival to see the Pavement documentary, Pavements, and it's called Pavements plural because it's about the band, but it's three different films. A traditional film about their reunion tour that they just had in 2022, I believe. Um, a scripted film featuring like Jason Schwartzman, the guy from Stranger Things, reenacting the career of Pavement, each member, each player, Gerard Cosley, everything. And a third, which is a musical, which I attended with our buddy Huasu. We went to the musical like a year ago, and this was the third element of this documentary about Pavement. And it didn't want to tank, but like at a certain point, if you're Vampire Weekend, Pavement doing a documentary, or let's say making the Joker #2, and you're Todd Phillips, and you're like, listen, in my heart of hearts, I'm an artist. I have made my mark. I have made my money. Is it worth it to get weird at the risk of losing some of my audience who's ready for this? Todd Phillips seems like he tanked Joker #2, making it a kind of a literal musical with, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm interested now, with like a very sad ending. Or Vampire Weekend doing this covers thing, tongue in cheek. Or Pavements taking a stab at an artistic documentary that's not like a traditional documentary, but essentially making a really light version of Spinal Tap and not giving anybody anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because sports is one of the few places where you can't necessarily do that other than like we're tanking to lose. Like the fans are also in on it, which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when not to get into basketball, we'll save it for that, but the fans have changed to openly rooting against their own team and being mad when they win late in the season.
Oh, Julius Randle won another game.
Like, oh, come on. Like we're trying to get that first pick. How dare we, send a veteran out there to play 35 minutes and not be terrible enough?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we doing this right?
The incentive is different in sports, right?
Exactly. So when someone does that as an artistic decision, whether that's to, fuck with their fan base and enrage their fan base intentionally, or it's just like, this is the artistic direction I want to go. I made Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now it's time to make Life Force,
right?
Which is going to be a totally different movie that gets shellacked by reviews when it comes out and then becomes a cult hit years and years and years later. And then here it is on Criterion for October because it's a horror movie with, pre-CGI effects. And does that like validate you down the line? Do we look back in retrospect and say, "Oh, they were doing a thing, so therefore we now have to respect it"?
I mean, I say Vampire Weekend is the band of this century because even before AI, we were getting to the point where like people were getting really good at stuff. There were really good punk bands, emo bands, rap groups, like producers. Everyone was a DJ. It was an aggregate time because we had the internet, right? So I think if you're Todd Phillips and you're the creator of this Pavement documentary, you're just like, I have only a few options left to make myself non-fungible or to make money and give people what they want. I can really commiserate to artists who are difficult. Like I remember Animal Collective, basically after Merriweather Post Pavilion, their most famous record, just like, we don't really want to do that anymore. And we think our music is better than ever, but it's difficult. And there's no entry point, and it's very different than what you know us as. I can't say I like it better than My Girls, but I respect it. And I think you have only a few shots if you're lucky as somebody in life, whether you're an artist or like a friend or someone at a job. You have a choice only a few times, and I don't think there's a wrong way to do it.
So you mentioned the Joker 2 film, More Jokers, recently. And
Two more jokes.
and is it getting annihilated by bad reviews, or is it that no one cares, that no one's going to see it? The first one was like buoyed in terms of its promotion by a fear that incels were going to go to the movie and shoot things up, that there was going to be multiple incel related crimes because they identified with the Joker character, and that the Joker's tale of alienation was going to spur white teenage boys into taking their parents' firearms and committing mass murders. And that didn't happen. And without that, Joker 2 just didn't have the same cachet. The first one was okay, and I liked Scorsese's take on it, where he was like, yeah, it was fine. I didn't really see it. I kind of got the gist of it because it was just homage to his work. A super gritty New York City with a misanthropic character, very much similar to Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver. And once that story was told, I don't even know what this one's supposed to be about, to be honest. I felt like that story was told in a way that we understood where he came from, and didn't love the movie, but didn't hate it. I found it fairly innocuous. It fit perfectly into the watch it on a plane genre of films.
I mean, we mine our memories as children in music and art all the time. Like, why not superheroes? Let's make them a Joker, but for adults. I always thought, like, reading these Batman books, which I was a fan of as a kid, like the Joker's such a lame enemy. Why can't he just like shoot him? And this whole like, well, it's Freudian and he's his like counterpart, and there's no Batman without a Joker. I'm like, fuck it, shoot him. Or throw one of those bat stars in his face.
But wait, why was there no Batman without the Joker? See, like, I'm not versed enough in this comic lore. I didn't know that they were the yin and the yang to Gotham City.
Come on, man. Of course, chaos, industry,
Chaos and
capitalism.
disorder
Yeah.
versus. Okay. No, I'm saying I'm understanding where this is coming from.
So the Joker's always kind of been a hero if you read into like the common man, right? And this is what Todd Phillips was mining.
Right. Bruce Wayne is fascism. I mean, for
corporate fascism.
He is the right. That's what I'm saying. He is law and order. He is the establishment.
Right.
He is the status quo and the iron fist. It's like it's not enough to.
And the Joker's for the people.
He's not out there.
Yeah.
Right. And Batman is not rehabilitating.
No.
He's out there punching people in the face.
Right. And from what I understand, the premise of the second Joker is prequel, maybe the origin story, and it brings in Harley Quinn, a character I have no feelings or memories for because that was after my time in comic books. Extremely stupid character. It's just like feels like a way to get a hot character, a woman into a comic book for incels. Like, she's as crazy as him. It's cool that she's not a man, but like she doesn't offer much as except like a adjacent mental illness to the Joker, or adjacent politics to the Joker. But
so she just matches his freak. That's all.
Yeah, their wide range, a spectrum of freak, is on the same page, and like apparently this is really devoted to the idea and concept of a musical. So like songs will go into songs, and
wait, it's a musical.
It's a musical. It's just music. So there's no plot allegedly. It's very loose. And apparently this ending is really sad.
Is it a jam band?
Quite the opposite. It is structured in scenes, right? It is Metallica It is the opposite of jam band. It's like hit your cue, hit your cue. Here's the drum fill, and now. Um, but it upset people because I don't think people love musicals that much. Maybe the music wasn't that good. Also, the politics of the actors in the movie aren't universal, and maybe we have superhero fatigue. I'm not sure, but no one showed up to the screenings, and everyone hated it.
Where do you fall on musicals? I'm not saying I'm anti-musical. It's never been really my bag per se. I remember the other day, my mom was like, "Why don't you go and see musicals more? You're in New York City, God damn it! Go to Broadway, see a musical."
Well, like
I was like, I don't know if I will.
I was watching this Pavements documentary, and I appreciate the gesture. I appreciate the attempt. I wasn't on board with it, but goddamn those songs. Like each time a song would come up, I would delight at it or like fall right back to when I was a teenager listening to this weepy song that Malkmus, ex Cookies Hoops guest Stephen Malkmus, wrote when he was a young dude as well. Like I just love that music. Musicals, as in Broadway and mm, like I'm trying to think of the Muppets or uh, West Side Story. I don't give a fuck. I could care less. I avoid them with all my heart.
This sort of checks out.
I mean, have you seen Hamilton?
No, I don't know the last time I went to a musical. As a kid, I feel like I went to see Lion King or
Cats,
one of
Les
those
Mis.
cats or what. Yeah, Les Mis, definitely a core memory of the Broadway world.
Mm-hmm.
Fiddler on the Roof and so forth.
Yeah, I respect Todd Phillips though. It seems like he was trying to tank too. He was doing covers of the Joker Man.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's like this current malaise that's about people thought they discovered the cheat code to making money in films was just comic books. Comic books. Do it over again, over again, over again. And we saw the blowback to that from our guy Marty and many other people complaining about the domination of the Marvel universe, etc., on not only movies but television as well, and that this was just the future of it. And now maybe we're seeing that, like all things, that ends. I don't know what we'll see next, and I can't sit here and say I'm enough of a scholar on the ways that these trends would work, or even enough about comic books to know that what has been extinguished. But maybe we are at least looking at the ebbing of that tide.
I don't know, man. Oasis just sold out 2 MetLife Stadium, right? Like everyone is still mining memory, and I think that's just what we do. They say the '70s is the golden age of cinema, Scorsese, all that. Maybe like '70s, '80s, '90s were the golden age. Now just we're in a rut of just like, oh, you like that story about Pete Maravich? Here it is with actors. Like that's the degree of what we're thinking. It's like, oh, you like the Knicks so much? If they win a championship, let's just do it.
Right. No, I get that. Also, by the way, maybe we'll cut this or not. There's a little bit of a crackling on your microphone end.
Oh,
from the when you move around. I think it might be your plug. I don't believe it's mine because you're a little more active than I am.
okay. Let me turn it down a little. Okay, I'll try that.
No, it stopped. We might not even edit this out. This is like the behind the scenes that you get. When you're on Patreon, you get this kind of incredible content. So we're going to get into Karl Anthony Towns' debut, the Bodega Cat, the Broadway Cats, if you will. But this is a little more non-NBA related, was that Julius Randle, who's now a member of the Minnesota Timberwolves and went the opposite way in that trade, his wife, Kendra Randle, had some complaints about New York that she finally voiced after this trade went public. And you might have the exact quote handy, but if not, the
I got this.
general.
Uh,
Okay,
It says
well, fuck generalities. Andrew, give us the exact quote.
TMZ: Julius Randle's wife welcomes Minnesota trade. City life was difficult. Her response: Okay, it wasn't difficult. LOL emoji. I just said living in a condo with two active boys was getting hard, and we were excited to have space. Blue heart. I love New York, and I will miss it and everyone dearly. Just excited for my husband for a new chapter. Heart. Yo, a condo with two active boys? Sure. Julius Randle, I looked it up. Julius Randle with the Knicks, starting in 1920, $18 million, $20 million, $20 million, $24 million, $27 million, ending in 2024. I think a bank would just be like, yeah, we'll loan you money for a townhouse in the West Village.
Well, you said, first off, you said 1820 instead of, or you said 1920 and not 2020. So you may have been talking about Obi Toppin, but I
Oh,
think you meant starting in 2020 with Julius Randle. To me, it was not a comment on necessarily the condo itself. It was more about outdoor spaces, but also you could live in Jersey, you could live in Westchester. I when I read that, I was like, this was more about decisions that you made about where you're going to live as a couple, and saying, well, if we're going to be in New York, we should get a place in the city, because in the past, guys in the Knicks had often lived in Westchester and had tons and tons of space. You could have, go and live in Wilton, or go in whatever those places in Connecticut where you can get a mansion and you can have a pool and you can have a tennis court and a basketball court. Like, there's no limit to outdoor space unless you say, well, yeah, we want to get a couple $1 million place in the city, and that just doesn't come with a backyard, because places in the city don't really come with backyards.
with his money, they do. They're not huge backyards, but if you're making 20 million a year, just as a New York Knick, he's probably saved his money as a Laker, as a Pelican. He's been a successful athlete, not to count someone's money, but like you could probably get a huge penthouse near Central Park. Go into Central Park. If you have
Right.
money for a gym for your kids to play ball in, I'm sure Julius Randle has connections where he can make that happen. I think she's just trying to be graceful on the way out, but also take shots, because no one wants to move from New York City to Minnesota. They were going to stay here happily. If the Knicks re signed him for an extension, she'd be like, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I thought people were jumping to the money stuff
Yeah.
instead of it being like, look, she's trying to explain why she's not disappointed to move to Minnesota. And maybe she is someone who grew up in the suburbs. Maybe she is someone who grew up driving everywhere, and not having to take public transportation, or not having to have a driver wait for you. And like, there are certainly these upsides to living in New York that are not available otherwise, just in terms of the culture and the proximity. And that's not the same in Minnesota. No disrespect to, the Rochester of the Midwest, but like, yeah, it's not New York City. Everybody gets that. But if you're going to be traded and you want to say something publicly positive about where you're going, you say, yeah, New York is a little cramped in comparison to Minnesota. Like, you could go get a Great Lake all for yourself. But like, do we think that they didn't actually go to the park? That they were like, oh man, if only we could go somewhere. If only we could get outside. It's like something you say.
I mean, she's got to have hurt feelings. He's been here since 2019. Like, that's half a decade. It doesn't feel like it. Remember, I told that story of me seeing him in Boom Boom Room, being
Mm-hmm.
tapping him and being annoyed, and I was like, dude, thank you for choosing New York. No one chooses us. That's cool, you know. And that was in 2019. So like they've been through a lot in New York City. So they've been through the pandemic here. And maybe that was taxing to them. And maybe that is a memory we all hold on. It's like these are really small spaces when we're not allowed to go outside. But like,
I don't know how old their kids are either, but
I mean, we
to your
do,
point
right?
about 5 years,
Famously, like he's like a 6, 7 year old. He's taller now. He's a star at
I'm saying
MSU.
I'm saying right. I'm saying at this point that one kid is probably like 10.
Maybe so. Yeah. Maybe I don't know exactly, but he's in his balling years. He's probably playing sports.
So
All that.
this is what I mean, right? It's like they have their life here, and like that kid was going to grow up as a New York City child, and now it's like, okay, your son's now is in Minnesota, but that's also part of like this is why you get paid what you get paid
Right.
in the NBA, is that yeah, your kids get to go to all the NBA games and sit front row and know all these amazing players and get to meet LeBron James when he's in town and so forth. But yeah, you're just going to have to go to like 8 different schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's
You're
crazy.
going to move like once every year and a half.
Yeah. I mean, we were at the tournament, right? And I remember when we did the Cookies Hoops Classic 1, there was like, we're hanging out. We're trying to figure out if we were drinking a Brooklyn Brewery beers, warm Brooklyn Brewery beers during the daytime, not a glimmer in all of our eyes. Fast forward to Cookies Hoops Classic number 3, and we've had tournaments in between that aren't the classics. Ton of kids, man. I was in the daycare area of the court with many children by parents who didn't have children when we first started.
This is true. And I thought you were going towards the Royale Ivy tack in Cookies Hoops tournament number 1. When we're talking about someone who played in the NBA for, 9, 10 seasons, but, moved 4 times.
I mean, it sucks, right? Like you've introduced me to some of your friends who work in the biz, and they're like, I remember one of them telling me just like, I don't know where my next job is going to be, but now that I've lived a few years in Park Slope, I am never leaving. So I'm just going to like rent an apartment wherever this job takes me, and my kids are going to be New Yorkers because this place rules.
Yeah, I mean that's the way to do it until you're shipped off to Minnesota. So,
Cold ass
Andrew,
city.
cold ass city. We got our first look at Karl Anthony Towns as a New York Knick yesterday. It was a preseason game against the Charlotte Hornets in Charlotte, and the starters got about 15 minutes a pop, and they were all there. Bridges, OG, Brunson, Hart, Cat. They played total about a quarter, 14 minutes on average, I would say. Do you like what you see?
I gotta contain my excitement because the Joker in me knows that injuries loom, a better opponents await. The Batman in me is like, motherfucker, this guy Karl Anthony Towns is so skilled and so big and young enough. How is this happening? And then you got OG, one of my favorite wing defenders. I'm like, this is fun as hell. I'm going to enjoy these few minutes in a preseason game. Karl Anthony Towns is an excellent, excellent player. He's not the best player at his position in the NBA. God damn, we got him.
Yeah, watching them try to figure out how to use him was cool because, look, I like Thibs as a coach. He's never been the most adaptable guy, but that doesn't mean he can't do it. He's smart. He's not someone who is rigid in his approach. He just has his preferences.
Sure.
And giving him a stretch 5 is cool because he's never had that. And he's never really seemed to embrace that or want to make that how his team operates. But it's also a product of, Joakim Noah and
Jimmy Butler.
Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Biggs.
Yeah. The guys who have played for him, whether it was in, New York or in Chicago, have always been traditional. And Cat is the outlier in both Minnesota and now in New York. So like there is some familiarity there and he knows how to use Cat. So Cat was putting up incredible numbers before Jimmy got there. or excuse me, before Gobert got there. And that's the Thibs era. So Thibs will get a lot out of Cat. I don't doubt that at all from the offensive side, even if it's antithetical to what we view as Thibs, someone who is comfortable running out two non-shooting bigs. Cat's going to thrive in that offense. I mean, I think they're probably going to try to run more. He launched a three from 8 feet beyond the line early in the shot clock with no hesitation. And that was the one that Knicks fans sounded like, oh Lord.
I mean,
like, this is a weapon we don't have, because it's a weapon that basically no one has.
Except Kristaps Porzingis was drafted by the Knicks. Different, not as bulky, obviously, but we've had a stretch five.
Yeah,
one of the more wonderful.
Arguably the top, let's say, four stretch, top five of all time.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a modern phenomenon. So of course you would say it's Cat, it's Porzingis. Chet isn't in that category yet, but like he will be when it's all said and done. Brook Lopez is in that. And I'm just arbitrarily leaving one other spot open for someone that I haven't thought of. Like, hey, it's Sam Perkins, whatever.
Sam Perkins. I mean,
Mehmet Okur, come on down.
I think we can make ourselves, as Knicks fans, we can make ourselves believe this roster makes sense. Cat's defensive liabilities as a rim protector maybe will be covered up by excellent wing defenders. Brunson's obviously his diminutive size with McBride, not much of like a vertical defender, also made up by Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby when healthy. That all makes sense. It's good enough to roll into the season and into the trade deadline with that blueprint. And like, I've seen Knicks fans overjoyed, being like, we've never had this. This is like, we've done it. The rebuild is complete. And it's because of Leon Rose. And I'm like, far be it for me to give this man credit, as we're talking about Billy Joel and how I do not want him to come back. We cannot bring Billy Joel back. He is not cool. He is lame. His song lyrics are annoying. Let's just leave him be as a very popular boomer artist. We don't not need to coolify him. But James Dolan, man, he has been in charge of this whole thing, this whole time. Whether he has become a savvy collaborator with his employee, Leon Rose, Worldwide West, or he's been like, hey, listen, I've not had a great track record. You guys go for it like I do the Rangers. You guys just go. I hired you. I trust you. Or he's like, I got the Sphere. I got the straight shot. I got Billy Joel concerts to go to. You guys, I'd love to be a part of this, but like, I am also a star in my own artistic career, and let them do a thing. I hate this, but I give credit to James Dolan.
Well, there's a lot of Gershon Rosas erasure in your last statement. Mm-hmm. I truly still believe he is the reason that the Knicks turned this around. It was set in motion by the patience of Leon Rose, but if you look at those early decisions they made, which included like those few signings that weren't good, the RJ Barrett drafting, the RJ Barrett extension, there were some moves that were not particularly cagey, but they did hold on to their picks. They kept their powder dry. They didn't make big moves. They sort of built things organically. And there was a time when we said, well, what is this going to lead to? What's the outlook here though? Is it, you're not quite bad enough to get a bunch of first round picks. You're not necessarily going to be able to sign elite free agents. Like, how does this work? And it worked out in a really narrow margin, to be honest. Most teams who attempt this don't succeed. You either have to become really bad and get top picks and then use that talent, or you have to be able to sign elite free agents. And it was really getting Brunson and then Gershon Rosas, where they really rode this econometric model to success, where they underpaid Brunson, they underpaid Randall, they underpaid DiVincenzo, they underpaid Deuce, they underpaid all these guys, and were able to then use the value not only that comes with being a good player, but comes with a good player on an affordable contract to start building this into a more conventional team in terms of guys are making a lot of money. There are injury risks. There's not as much depth, but they did turn this, I would say, cautious approach into a team that is now not cautious, but is also built to win right now.
I mean, Brock Ayler, also the cap guy who
Mm-hmm.
figured out that loophole, which everyone probably would have figured out eventually. But this is what I mean. We have our heroes, whether they be Leon Rosas, um, Thibs. James Dolan is still in charge. This is him. He hired these people. He did it. And everyone's like, fuck Dolan. I'm like, okay, fair enough. We spent decades doing that. But like, it started to kind of turn with the Oakley incident at MSG, where like, Oakley had to be escorted out because he got a little physical around James Dolan. And I was like, am I taking James Dolan's side here? Because like, you can't have an ex-employee come back to the place of work and start punching people. Like, they gotta go. Like, this is he is the boss. He has been a hands-on boss. So, online I see people celebrating Rosas, but celebrating Leon Rose, rightfully celebrating Derrick Rose, celebrating, oh, Randall built this culturally. I'm like, James Dolan built this culturally, man. You got to give credit where credit's due.
Look, you don't got to tell us. Look at the joy of basketball. We were early in on the James Dolan,
Apology.
apologia.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally were like, I mean, to me, what Dolan had done since Phil Jackson was fan service. And okay, you guys don't like the current system. What about Phil Jackson? All I hear is about how much you like Phil Jackson and how he's the Zen master and you want him. And Knicks fans loved it. Not you necessarily as a
hater,
feeble-minded contrarian,
hater.
as a delusional anti-Knicks hater.
Chicago Bulls out of here. Just get these Chicago Bulls out of here, man.
But when he got Phil Jackson, Knicks Nation, the Bing Bong Boys were ecstatic. Yep. They loved it. Yep. They hired Fizdale. People were like, exactly. That's just who we wanted. People got tired of Fizdale. James Dolan fired him. People got tired of Phil Jackson. James Dolan fired him. They were yelling about him, and this team will never be good as long as Dolan is the owner, and he does everything that I say. I'm like, well, what are you mad at? Like that the collective wisdom of the Knicks fan base is failing to build a winning team because James Dolan is listening to you?
Right.
He's like that bastard will never win with him and my ideas.
And like, hang with me here. This is such a stupid thought I've been having, but
dude, I am so used to this. Let's go.
This is not your first perfect pod, but like, I think Dolan and his enterprises, like Achilles' heel is loyalty. We see it, to your point, with fans. He was like, oh, I got to be loyal to my fans and give them what they want, give them the names they want. Isaiah Thomas, through thick and thin, you are my guy. Steve Mills, through thick and thin, losing. Allen Houston, come back. Patrick Ewing, come back. MSG is a loyalty-based company, but it's sort of like Halley's Comet. As a fan, maybe with a disgruntled fan like myself, when you're young, you see how this loyalty can give you something wonderful, right? You have the Knicks in the finals a couple times. The Knicks with Patrick Ewing, a player who has formed my sports brain. And then this loyalty kind of like sets off into the galaxy, not to be seen again until later on in your life when you're washed like me. And the same practice of loyalty comes back like Halley's Comet when you're 70 or 80 and reappears as Brunson and Towns. And you're like, maybe nothing has changed, but the different motions of the galaxy just kind of like happen. A broken galaxy is right twice in life. And maybe I'm thinking too hard about it because eventually Halley's Comet is going to come back bringing players who are kind of good, who have not gotten out of the second round yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is true. I think.
I mean, you were Googling something, but like my point was, the loyalty has never changed. The personnel, the world around him has changed. Dolan has stayed the same. The quality of thinking, the quality of playing, the science that goes into the sport have changed, and the probability of his loyalty bringing fruits that the fans enjoy are greater.
Well, to me, Dolan didn't necessarily upgrade or update his worldview. He just got the people around him who would do that for him.
But Steve Mills
So,
doesn't exist. Layden doesn't exist anymore, right? That kind of thinker is gone.
well, no, this is what I mean, right?
Mhm.
It's like he just shifted people's chairs around. We're like, for all we know, Mills still has a seat somewhere, still has an office.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Still is there.
Yeah.
You know, Allen Houston's still around. You go to the Knicks game, Allen Houston's there. He's one of the team presidents or
He's
whatever,
powerful.
whatever it is.
He's powerful now.
But it's like, what does he act? Does he actually have a say in anything?
I'm sure.
Because at this, but does he though? I don't know.
Yo.
But you know, it's like, okay, we got Rosas making basketball decisions. We got Leon Rose who's running the show. We've got other ancillary characters in this mix. Is Allen Houston just a Knicks legend as a figurehead, which is okay, and I don't have an issue with that. But I think this is what's interesting about Dolan is that he clearly loves having these guys around, people who are on the Knicks, but he's happened to delegate responsibility out to people who work and who have, you know, turned the Knicks into a modern organization, whether that's with sports science or metrics or capology, in a way that they just did not do before. They've just gotten more competent people, but I feel like his guys are still there. He's just let them have office jobs and wear suits to the game and get great seats, and they get to work for the Knicks because those are his guys.
I mean,
so I feel like he's kind of doing it perfectly.
I mean, I'm trying to give him credit here, and you know, you ask what Allen Houston actually does, and when you were talking about Rosas, rightfully, you brought up the good contracts of Jalen Brunson, which led to a domino effect to Slam Gennaro, and Julius Randle's affordable contract. No one wanted to come to New York during the summer of Randle. So, like, and he's like a maligned player. So, like, that was not a smart ad. It ended up being good. Brunson is a Dolan Allen Houston guy. They were going to bring Brunson the minute he was born, right? Like, the minute he picked up a basketball as a toddler at MSG, be like, if he's a baller, we're going to sign him. Like, Brunson, you're a part of our family. Jalen Brunson's father has been part of that organization my whole life. Like, so that's not Rosas. That's Brunson being a company man. Like, Dolan was like, Rosas is probably like, he's undersized. I wouldn't go for him. I would have drafted Halliburton. And Dolan probably is like, we're waiting for Brunson to be our point guard, good or bad, and he's going to take a pay cut because he's part of this company. He will have a lifetime job here.
So we've got Allen Houston is currently the vice president of player leadership and development. Okay. We've got Brock Aller, who is basketball and strategic planning. My understanding is he's the cap metrics guy, right?
He's the money guy. I mean, people are like, he's such a hero. I'm like, whatever, guys. It's just math. Like, what? We'll get to that topic some other time. Revenge of the Nerd.
Leon Rose as the president. Rosas is senior vice president, basketball operations. Is Worldwide West still around?
He's around. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns was his prize.
Okay, he's an executive vice president, senior basketball advisor, so he's still there. Mills no longer on the masthead.
And Patrick Ewing.
All right.
Let's go.
R.I.P. So that was what I wanted to get to. So Patrick Ewing has now entered the fray, and he is going to be a team ambassador. And my experience with NBA team ambassadors is really Allen Iverson, because the Sixers gave him that role, and he has famously been annoyed by that. Like, he's good with being a team ambassador. He loves going to the games. He's a hero, sits front row, has a great time, gives guys the best hugs in the business. Awesome. But he said on multiple occasions, like, I want a real job. I want to work with the front office. I want to work with the coaching staff. And like, why can't I do that? And Philly has been resistant to give him that role. So I did notice with the Ewing team ambassador, they included a note on there that was like he will work directly with Coach Thibs and the front office. What does that mean?
I think
We just detailed this sprawling front office with all these people in different roles. Who even knows what they're up to? And we're going to add him, who's going to work directly with Thibs and the front office. Directly, Andrew.
no, I believe it because we've seen how these huge corporations work, or like let's say like a newspaper like New York Times. If you work in arts and leisure and you have a thought about fashion, sure. If you have an interest in current events as opposed to food, yeah, we've seen that. If you want to do editorial or opinion, whatever, you're under this building. A good company just collects talent. So Ewing is probably just wandering around the halls trying to figure out what he wants to do. And he has experience as being the head coach of Georgetown, being an assistant coach for decades in the NBA. The crime is he's never been head coach, but he's surly, right? He's very intelligent, very opinionated, and allegedly like not the easiest basketball person to work around. He's tough love. So I just think he's around. Worldwide West is around. The general manager is just like kind of around, right? Like, I always talk about this. The scouts I used to hang out with, like, do GMing. They pick decisions. So, like, I think it's not like a French kitchen. It's not like you're the sous chef, you're the head chef, you're at the pass, you do dishes. I think sports organizations, like most organizations, like Google, Apple, Microsoft, everything talks to each other.
Is this an Eric Adams no-show job? Is my thought. Because looking at the front office, we know how these decisions get made. But Ewing is a little different from having John Starks or Larry Johnson
well.
or like exactly those kind of guys floating around.
Tim
because
Thomas was
they
rebuilt.
weren't, but they don't have Ewing's experience. They don't have Ewing's background as a assistant coach in the NBA, as someone who famously wanted to be an NBA coach and was hurt when the Knicks didn't interview him for job openings. He went and coached in college. So I would be surprised if he took this kind of ceremonial job if there wasn't a little bit more to it. But also, maybe he's bored. Maybe he wants to be back in New York. And, as he famously said, he really regretted not being able to win the Knicks championship and bring one to New York. And I felt like he was way too hard on himself for that. He was an awesome player, and he was scapegoated, maligned at times. And he did have a couple, big plays that will stick out in people's mind as plays where he missed a shot or he didn't make the play he needed to, whatever the case may be. And it does feel like he's internalized that guilt. So maybe he wants to be back here with a team that has a legitimate chance of winning a title, to be there in the building, like he was during the playoffs when you saw Marbury and Melo and Ewing and all the Knicks, with the homing signal coming back in for, potentially this championship run. Where the fuck was Jeremy Lin?
There's still bad blood there, right? That relationship was severed so heavily because Melo didn't want him there and management sided with Melo. And then when they let him walk, Jeremy Lin was mad that they sided with Carmelo Anthony. I just don't think it's going to happen. And, like that was an embarrassing time for the Garden. They were so bad that this Taiwanese American point guard was the most popular thing of the decade. They had signed these big free agents, traded for real players, and Jeremy Lin is what we want. It's like not ideal for MSG. I mean, he's the Joker of MSG.
I am so bummed that he's not out there. I want him at the Knicks games. Like, I'm sorry. He is such a huge part of the culture of that team.
I mean, he's still playing overseas, but like I I I don't know how to describe the energy during Linsanity because it's become a punchline. It's like, oh, this player was so good for 5 games. It's another Linsanity moment. And as baseball is going, like Francisco Lindor's Linsanity with him in the Mets. But like,
Can
yep.
Hey man, sorry to interrupt you. I'm gonna have to be honest. There was someone out there doing some interviews at the tournament, and I divulged that you will weep on camera
Pretty much.
if Jeremy Lin gets brought up.
Yeah.
They asked me about how excited you were about this Knicks team. I was like, well, he's been to the top of the mountain. Like Andrew, he's reached apex Knicks fan, so he's just
I'm
floating
enlightened.
along
Yeah.
in the afterlife. Like he doesn't get too depressed. Like he doesn't get too happy. Like of course he wants them to win, but you know he's moved past the mortal coil. He is not who you think he is. And the guy's like, what do you mean? Like, look, give him a beer and ask him about Jeremy Lin and see what happens.
It's easy, but I am the New Yorker cartoon of the shaman on top of the mountain, and you're climbing up with that microphone and that recording app, and I'm wearing my Jeremy Lin jersey, just being like, I've achieved apex Nick fandom, which is I don't give a fuck. But the Jeremy Lin story is the coolest Nick story of my lifetime. Sorry, Patrick Ewing, who I love quite a bit. Yo, I met Patrick Ewing once. That dude is fucking tall. If you didn't know he was tall, he's really, really tall. He's like
No shaman.
Yeah. He is a big dude. I was at a fundraiser when I met him, and this is hilarious. I was asking.
Are you a body shaman right now?
Oh, I was gonna finish it. I think I was talking to oh my god, who was that center with the dreads or the braids that they had? Chris Copeland. I had just met Chris Copeland, and I was like, "Is Ewing here?" And he was just like, "Turn around." And I turned around, and among all these basketball players of Allen Houston's height, Patrick Ewing walks in, and he's like this towering dude. He was like big, and the room kind of like takes and inhales a bit. He is. I don't blame him for coming back to New York in some the Knicks in some role because, as you said, it's a good time to be here. But this is where we love him the most, where the world loves him the most. And Dolan is Trumpian, right? Like, I think all you have to do with James Dolan, no matter what happens, no matter how much smack you talk, you just have to be nice to him. And he's like, you're forgiven. You kiss the ring, you're back. Latrell Sprewell, I think famously, was just like, you know what? I'm sorry. Can I come back? And he's like, fuck yeah, you can come back. You're one of us again, And that's all Oakley has to do. And Ewing probably did a version of that where he's like, maybe he's on this mountain with me, and we're the same stature on this New Yorker cartoon, and we've both reached New York Knicks Zen, which is thank you for everything. This is fun. Let's go.
Yeah, I do wish Lynn and Dolan, or however this entanglement needs to be untangled. I would love to see him in that mix. I know he's still playing, so it's a little different. So he may just be in China during some of these times when they overlap.
Yeah, and he's
but yeah, I would love to see him when you look there and you see all these Knicks on the sidelines going crazy. I would like Jeremy Lin in that mix because as great as Marbury was, as great as Melo was, Linsanity as an isolated cultural experience tops all of those.
But this,
I mean, we could say that the season where the Knicks won 55 games was a much more sustained period of brilliance, but Linsanity was incredible. It was the biggest story in the world, like literally for a week and a half. And I just want him there taking his place amongst the other, legends of the Garden, because he should be.
But what if you're like Val Kilmer Batman? What if you're George Clooney Batman, Christian Bale, all the Batman, and then all the Commissioner Gordons and all the Robins, and you're just like, yo, high five. And then the motherfucker Joker's here. And it's just like, wait, you're not part of this fraternity. You were like the chaos that happened because we weren't there. And like, I can't imagine Marbury. I mean, Marbury seems like a unique but awesome dude now. But like, if you were a soldier for the Garden, why would you want to be standing next to Jeremy Lin, who's like stealing your valor? Like, the tension is what makes it delicious, right? Jeremy Lin kind of opened our eyes to what this thing is, being like, we don't want to win a championship. That's not happening. We understand that. We don't even want like a superstar. We want something that we feel like reflects us and the fan base. And this kid who you took a chance on is becoming the sensation around the world. We feel like as fans, we're a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Lin is interesting in the situation because he really isn't part of the club.
Nope.
Because Amari is there,
Yep.
Melo is there, Ewing, Marbury, Spree. Like all these guys are the
Tim
proverbial, once a Nick, always a Nick.
Yeah.
They're Knicks for life. John Wallace, my guy, in the building.
Yeah.
At least was. He worked there for years, and he just barely even played in the Knicks. He just got drafted by him, was there for a little bit,
Marcus
but came
Camby
back.
has
He's
come back.
Yeah. And I mean, again, this might be by choice, but yeah, it felt as if Lynn being there would have been a nice moment. But as you said, he was never in the club, whether as a player or his temporary Knicks stardom, because in some ways he was a Knicks star because he was a star and he was playing for the Knicks. He was not a Knicks star. He was a guy who had a moment with the team. He wasn't someone who's, no, I'm a New York Knick. This is who I am. This is who I identify with. And I think that's what Dolan can't necessarily forgive. Not that he left as a free agent, but because he didn't identify himself as a Knick. Because how could he? He was only there for a year, whatever.
And if you're the media person for the Knicks, be like, okay, biggest ovation for Patrick Ewing, and then maybe Carmelo Anthony. It's like, oh, Jeremy Lin's going to be there. It's like, fuck, he's going to get the biggest ovation. We cannot have this happen. Like, this is not good for the brand. Because to your point, he was such a flash in New York City, in MSG. We cannot have the fans clap for Patrick Ewing and Carmelo Anthony and like weeping and going hysterical for Jeremy Lin, because that'll happen.
I think so. Before we move on to other New York basketball, Karl Anthony Towns, he made his debut. His highlights, knocking down his three. You saw Josh Hart, his teammate, seemingly attempt to coin a nickname for him, Big Bodega. Now, you understand where this comes from. He is Dominican. Bodega is a New York word for corner store. Big, cat is a 7-foot person. Big Bodega. Now, it didn't necessarily feel as if he was even referencing the obvious Bodega cat. Which, to me, that would have been kind of funnier if they said, hey,
that, yeah.
Right, he's Bodega cat now. That's kind of funny. It's a little post-gritty New York City fetishizing. Like, we're going to call him chopped cheese. It's like, well, this is just internet New York. We're going to call him Big Timberland. It's like, well, instead of Timberwolf, former Timberland. It's like,
damn,
I know, I get
pops.
it.
Yeah,
but it's like these are kind of modern touchstones for a grittier version of New York City.
It's like a version of Run TMC, but it's Run Bacon, Egg, and Cheese.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So how do you feel about Big Bodega?
Not great.
Are you in or out?
Not great, but like Josh Hart's from Pennsylvania. Like, come on. Like, yo, shout out to our buddy Deezus, who is the bodega guy. The culture.
No, him and Mero coined all this stuff. They brought it into popularity. And this is all a reflection totally of their cultural impact.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's been diffused several times. So, like, on one hand, it's cool if they call him Big Bodega, which is like they are Knicks fans. They started these kind of conversations, popularized these terms. So seeing Karl Anthony Towns called Big Bodega is a nod to the impact of Bodega Boys. So there is something cool about that.
I mean, Josh Hart's from Maryland. So, like, of course he'd be psyched on bodegas, right? Because he'd be like,
Dude, he's going there eating oysters in a baseball stadium. He's got no idea what's
he's
happening.
dining on bivalve. It's the big bivalve. It's like, wrong city, buddy. You play for New York. But
The big terrapin.
I mean, I went into the Los Alcos #1 adjacent to the garden, and our buddy Steve Powers, Espo, does all their paintings and wall murals. And he put on the walking taco Timberlands, like rendered out Timberlands with like shadows and detail. I'm like, all right, call a spade a spade. So I guess I can forgive Josh Hart, Maryland native, for doing that. We should call him like the big crab or something, or the medium crab, the soft crab, soft shell crab.
Soft. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Like that.
But like it's too easy. But Cat doesn't really leave much room for imagination because it's just cat stuff. I mean, we should call him Broadway. I don't know. But like, does Brunson have a good
Cat. Yeah,
nickname?
cats.
Yeah. Like,
Hmm.
what good nicknames do we have on the Knicks currently? Mikal Bridges, not that I know of. Brunson, obviously Brundog. We lost the best one, Slam Gennaro.
It's not a nickname heavy team. I mean, other than Deuce McBride, but Deuce
I
is
like
just
Deuce.
his name.
Yeah. Has he
No, it's a cool name.
shat in a game
It's
before? Is he the truth? Deuce Truth?
well, I mean that's why he's called Deuce
No, I was asking,
for
has he deuced in a
yeah
game?
yeah for defecating during games.
Fecal matter.
His real name is Miles, right? Yeah.
Yeah. God, people love him. I might be the biggest doubter of McBride, but people are like, oh, he's gonna torch second teams. I'm like, he's so small, but he's good. He can
No,
hit shots.
he's a good player. All right, I lied. We're gonna have one more Knicks thing before we move on. I know people are
Kolek.
ready to get out of Knicks territory here. And it's not even Kolek, who, as I said right before the
We got
draft,
the white
we can
boy.
go back to the text
We got
messages.
the white boy.
I said there's only one guy, and all the highlight clips I watch is someone who is not a draft expert, who has not watched college ball. Only one guy stuck out as a genius passer. I said this before the Knicks drafted him. It was like Kolek. This guy can hoop. Genius passer.
I don't remember that
So far,
but I remember you calling a lot of
stop your
players.
stop your damn lying.
Who was that Wizard
Kolek?
center you loved?
Who,
No longer in the league anymore.
Andre Blatch.
I like Blatch.
No, but Kolek to me, and I'm not just saying this. This is all facts. I would never lie to our listeners ever. Ever. It'd be insane for me to spread mistruths. But to me, it was pretty obvious that he was the best passer in the draft. Other than there was a guy from Spain who could pass pretty well too. I wasn't sure if his size or his speed, athleticism would translate to the league because he's like about 6 feet tall with like a below average wingspan, not only for the NBA, but kind of for like regular people. And those are liabilities if you're trying to be an NBA player. But it was undeniable that his basketball IQ, and in particular his facilitation and passing, were high level. Like even elite within the NBA. He is just a fantastic passer.
And
so
let's like pump the brakes on that
you know.
because like he might not even play this year.
Oh, I'm saying he might not be good enough to play. He does have this one outlier skill set where he is a marvelous passer.
And he knocked out.
That doesn't mean he could be doesn't mean he'll be a great NBA player. No, I mean there's other things he can do. He can handle the ball, but what makes him really interesting as a prospect is that he's just a dynamic facilitator.
I just like having one of those white guys, the Steve Kerrs and John Paxsons of the world. Every good team needs a white guy.
Yeah, that's true. The Knicks are just lacking in that white guy without DiVincenzo. So now they have a new white guy to the fan base can get enamored by.
Listen, they don't want Ron Baker at the ceremony. The fans will lose their shit.
But yeah, so now we can move on. That was really all I wanted to get to there.
Oh, I thought you were gonna have a deuce. Anyway,
No, I
yeah,
had
let's
something
move
else, and
on.
at this point I'm just done with the Knicks. Just done with this whole team.
Welcome to the top of the
Um,
mountain.
okay, so we're gonna move all the way over to Barclays Center for a second here. Liberty going to the WNBA Finals after pretty decisively dispatching the former defending champions, Las Vegas Aces. I did not think that would be as easy as it was, but here we are with the Libs going to the finals against the winner of the next game between the Lynx and the Sun, which would make the Liberty the easy favorite. These teams are good; they're going against,
Yeah.
but I think they're decidedly the favorite. Are we going to get a basketball title in New York City within like a week and a half?
They couldn't have done it without the interns. The interns were on that early,
Mm-mm.
making that propaganda, the soul of basketball at Barclays. Man, I thought the Aces, who were kind of like so this year, really good, really good. The MVP also, and like I thought they were waiting. I thought they were playing possum a little bit. I thought when the playoffs rolled around, they would get serious and knuckle down with their hard hats and lunch pails, and at least give the Liberty a series, and at most just beat them. You know,
Well, I
too
mean,
small. They're too small. Brianna Stewart, too big off those pick and rolls. Like, yeah, they were just outmatched, and the size was really an issue.
and also, a lot of this comes down to the ending of I guess it was game two.
You were at
You
game
know,
two.
so yeah, but it's the best of five series. You got to win three. Game two, there was a couple late plays where they reviewed who the ball went out of bounds on, went the Liberty's way. That was a game that the Liberty absolutely could have lost.
Yeah.
It was a coin toss, and if that's the case, then now we're at 2-2 going to game five. So, instead of a 3-1 decisive series, it's 2-2. So that's kind of the beauty of the 5-game series.
Oof, stressful.
I mean, their first ones, well, just in general, what I liked about the WNBA was that, because there's only 8 teams in the playoffs in a 12-team league, the ones who were in those spots, like 6, 7, 8, which include, Caitlin Clark's Fever, they were a 500 team. The ones who were in the 7th and 8th spot, they weren't good at all. Those were just shitty teams.
They just need to fill out the bracket.
It's literally a bottom 5 team in the league. And they're going up there playing against a team that's the equivalent of, let's say, a 55-60 win NBA team. And they just get pummeled. And that first round series being only 3 games, it's just over with.
Yeah.
So which was kind of nice was that you don't screw around in the first round with these, all right, Boston Hawks, looks like it's going to go 6. We're going to spend 2 weeks on this series. Like, no, we're done with that. That's gone in 3 days. And we're moving along. And every of the 4 teams left was a legit contender. It's almost like you just immediately are in the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals.
Yeah.
It's like you're the top 4 teams, they're going to the finals. So I don't know. I really do appreciate that as much as I like the extension of the NBA playoffs and how much good basketball you get to watch and how many meaningful games there are. The wham bam thank you ma'am element of the WNBA, pretty sick.
I will, just to be devil's advocate here and to pump up one of the great humans who's ever walked this earth, Dikembe Mutombo, who just passed away this week. The Nuggets 8-1 victory over the Sonics was like one of the great basketball memories of my lifetime. Him holding that ball, screaming on the ground. And I know the first round doesn't really bear fruit like that ever, but when it has happened, Mutombo and then the Knicks in 99 bouncing the Heat, those are like formative memories because they're so rare. And I think about them still, and I was thinking about it a lot this week after Mutombo died. So I kind of like I don't love the wild card in baseball. It's too quick. I'm like, hey, if you're that much better, let's play 7. Let's just see. I don't know. I like that randomness just because we've seen it so two memorable times in the NBA that have like shaped the modern NBA.
Those were both 5-game series, correct?
Oh God, were they 5? I thought they were 7. I'm sorry if they weren't.
I,
You might be
I think
right.
they were
Yeah,
5.
yeah, you might be
I
right.
think so.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to remember
Wait, the Knicks?
if
Yeah.
the Heat coming out of the play-in a couple years ago, if they were the 7 seed, or how it broke down, because a play-in team like the Heat going all the way to the finals, there isn't any precedence for it because there wasn't such thing. But them beating, was the Celtics? I mean, we could have looked this up, but that's just not what we do.
No.
I think, but to me, these are 7-game series, and they make those kind of upsets less likely.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't really happening with that kind of frequency anyway in the past. But I think the first round probably should be 5. The only issue is that because there's so much basketball, you can't really be mad because you just pay attention to the ones that are still ongoing.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, 7 games. Well, but there's a game every night. So I'm just going to pay attention to the 3 or 4 competitive series.
Yeah.
And I don't have to watch the other ones. And then whichever ones go to 6 or 7 games, then we can watch them.
I mean,
so I don't mind it in that way.
A lot of these games got flexed to ESPN2. Like the absence of Caitlin Clark is noticeable. If you were branding the WNBA or you were working in marketing, would you, and after game 2 of the Aces Liberty game, would you try to mine a three-peat in the Aces or give New York a championship? What's more valuable?
You mean for the
brand of the
brand
league?
of the WNBA?
Because
a New York championship. They need that, I think.
I agree. But then I started thinking about if they had a three-peat in Las Vegas, they could really anoint Asia Wilson as like a walking legend, right? And like
True.
push her as this like, we are witnessing greatness, and we can start comparing her to the understudy, the Caitlin Clark character. There's something there too. Unfortunately, it's Las Vegas, and no one really cares about Vegas. But like, there's a certain value to having a three-peat, right?
I mean, I agree with that. And Vegas is a good bad guy. It's Vegas. You've got, Becky Hammond there, who's just kind of obnoxious and seems kind of mean. I mean, with all due respect to her, this isn't a slight.
I'm a fan. She's interesting.
Yeah, same. You have Asia Wilson, who is the best player on the planet. I mean, you watch her play. She's better than everybody. Like,
I agree.
There's certain things she can't do. She's not a great outside shooter.
Yeah.
I mean, she can make mid-range and she can score at the basket. She can post up. She can drive. She runs the floor. She's just insanely big and fluid. She's an incredible defender. Not a stretch 5,
no.
But she's kind of like, what would be even the comparison? Like a Tim Duncan, like that's
a goat,
just a goat, but plays a 4, plays the 5.
Yeah.
I mean, Pau is amazing too. I mean, stylistically, maybe more like Pau, but whatever. That's the category of player she's in, like fluid, dynamic, awesome, big. But I think New York never having won a title, and the excitement in the building at Barclays, and getting like another excellent team, and especially it being in a market like New York. To me, the biggest issue is that if Las Vegas was LA, this would be a different story. If it was Chicago, it might be a different story.
Right.
With the league, it's crescendo in popularity. But Vegas just doesn't have any cachet. It's an expansion team. There's no real Vegas fans. There's no history there. And I know the WNBA almost is, because of the obscurity of the league and its players for so long, the history doesn't matter in the same way that it does for like the Knicks or the Celtics, the Bulls or whatever. Like the Aces history in the collective consciousness of basketball viewers is about as long as the collective consciousness of the New York Liberty. When people started paying attention, or the Indiana Fever, or whatever it would be.
What if the
They may have
Mohican
literally
Suns defeat the Libs?
exactly. It's like, wait, you have a team named after a casino
Yeah.
with the same colors? Hold on, that's what's been going on over there? That's this whole time? You've just been a marketing ploy for a casino?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Liberty winning because the games are so popular, because they're jammed, because it's New York City that is kind of in this basketball moment right now with the Knicks, the Cookies Hoops Classic 3, the Liberty. Like New York and basketball are really healthy right now. And then, of course, you got the Nets who are shooting for that number 1 pick.
Yeah, the black flag, no, the white flag, the one and done bus factory, wearing that black jersey. Yeah, I think the WNBA brass is seriously looking at our New York mob tee and being like, we have to come through for this T-shirt.
Yeah, that's clearly true. I believe that.
Sizes are
100%.
dwindling, so get yours if you're thinking about it. I don't know if the interns have it in them to do a reprint, but get them while they're good. But
Look, if they win a championship, who can say? But for the time being, this shirt will probably not be reprinted exactly as it is.
oh, we got to
Does that sound like something that's fair?
yeah, we got to put a trophy
Sound
in their
fair?
hands, sort of like the Cookie Soup Classic trophy at Hoop York in their hands. What's up with your boy Sudeikis? I've been seeing a lot of him hugging up on Liberty players. I thought he was an Iowa fan.
Yeah, it's a little interesting because, I thought this guy was Mr. Caitlin Clark, and he's just like a hood hopper. He's just out here jumping from crew to crew. Like, what's your neighborhood, dog? And then, but then you made a good point, I think, over text. Like, he just loves women.
He just supports the
ladies.
the rights of or the spirit of competition of all human beings. He is just a humanitarian and respects the craft of all of God's creatures.
As a Fever day one, I'm here with my Liberty shirt, and I know we're in the business of peddling Liberty shirts here and all, but why do you only have one shirt, Jason? You just got that one shirt, and I'm not here to judge his fashion choices, but the Harris Walls Love and Liberty, Justice and Liberty shirt, it's a weird mashup. And it also goes it's in your favorite format of shirts as well. The name and in consecutive lines, a classic streetwear staple.
It's experimental Jet Set's original design, and like that shirt was especially strange because it had an emotion in there, right? It was like Waltz, Harris, Joy, and Clark. I don't know. I forget.
No, Liberty is last because it actually
Joy and
is a
Liberty,
Liberty
right.
shirt.
And it's like kind of
joy
political, right?
It's justice or something. But it's also, right, is that a Liberty shirt? It is though, right?
I think so, yeah.
Like, I feel like it's in the Liberty colors.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this Harrison Walls with Joy, and then also the women's basketball team. Yeah, it's an interesting mashup.
I guess he's my Joker. I would not be able to exist without Jason Sudeikis, whose movies are like kind of gross out frat movies. He famously served his wife divorce papers at like a big career moment of hers. She's hilarious too. Like, gets with the younger, like more fancy, more famous kid in Harry Styles. I'm not saying he hadn't suffered in his life, but I really don't like Ted Lasso, that show that kind of disagreed with my Batman sensibilities. And I know I'm the Joker for a lot of other Batman out there, but he's my Joker.
I had never considered that Jason Sudeikis was your Joker, but now
Why not?
that you bring it up,
Why not? I mean,
I feel like you're more his Penguin.
oh God, I cannot watch that show. I'm trying to get through it. But like, Batman doesn't
Because
hate the
is
Joker,
he there?
right?
If you ask Jason Sudeikis, like, who are you in this alignment? Is he saying I'm the Joker to Quo's Batman?
Yeah. And yo, anyone who reads the comic book knows there's a respect. There's a mutual respect between the Joker and Batman. They're not just enemies. Because if they were just enemies, Batman would just chuck one of those bat stars in his face. But no, it's like, you must exist for the balance of this universe. I am on top of this New Yorker cartoon mountain in a Zen state. And there you are in a fever jersey. Or not.
So Sudeikis is there, front row, at a Liberty game. He looks up. He sees someone wearing a Cookies Hoops New York mob tee, and he says, "That's made by Andrew Quo, my Scarecrow."
My Riddler? What are the weird, like, what's that crocodile's name? Country Croc? I forget. Hey man, we're just living in a comic book. And Sudeikis
He's
is,
like, "Wow, there he is, the Rizzler
yeah.
himself."
I mean, him, I feel the same way I feel about Spike Lee co-opting some Liberty games where he was trying to cosplay himself
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as a Knicks fan, yelling at Kelsey Plum. And I was like, sir, sit down. We don't love you as much as you think we love you as a basketball fan, as a filmmaker, whatever. That's a different discussion. But like, we don't need you yelling on the sidelines for every big New York City moment on in basketball, right? Like, Ben Stiller has tried to rise up the ranks of celebrity voices for the Knicks. And the Knicks cultivate this. The Knicks find celebrities that fall in line with Dolan's thing, and they use them as they're hired actors, literally. They put them in great seats, and then they get on social media and do stuff. We're on to you, Spike.
Stiller absolutely has done this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, yes, you may have been a lifelong Knicks fan. I don't know. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
sure. But it's only in recent years that he has made himself Mr. New York City, especially on Twitter. He's like, "Oh, I'm here. I'm active. I'm an active New York City Knicks fan on Twitter. That's who I am now. That's Ben Stiller. You know me, Mr. Knicks."
Every time a big
Like,
moment happens, he's like, Woj for the Knicks. He's like, oh, here's my take on it. I love it.
where were your Ron Baker takes?
Yeah, where's the ovation for Baker? I mean, I remember when Spike Lee, famous New York Knicks fan, before the Reggie Miller incident happened. I remember that happening, and we all fucking hated him because that defeat was so heartbreaking. We're like, sit down, do not juice up this dude who could beat us single handedly. Reggie Miller was that deadly at the time, so good. And when that happened, we were like, can this guy fucking just like stay in his lane and not like inspire, become bulletin board in real time material for the other team? And now it's like kind of like morphed into the opposite, where like Billy Joel is good all of a sudden, and Spike Lee is like a positive energy at the Garden.
I wonder if the Nets, they get Cooper Flag. They're on
Oh, please,
they're
please,
they're on a
please.
rebuilding mission.
Yeah.
They get Cooper Flag. Ben Simmons returns to form, re-ups a long-term contract with the Nets. They build around Simmons and Flag. Incredible combination. If they became really good and the Knicks faltered, would Spike be there at Barclays?
He would have a shirt that said Waltz, Harris, Sudeikis, Liberty. I mean Nets. Ooh, my bad. Oh, sigh.
You were close.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a celebrity, I think you go to where the light is, right?
True, but I mean, I don't think he would abandon the Knicks for the Nets. That feels like a bridge too far. I
Wasn't he
remember
at some
working.
Nets games when they were
Yeah,
like
he was.
KD and he wasn't wearing Knicks regalia? He was like just a fan of basketball, which
Which I
I
also
yeah, like,
understand.
yeah, I mean,
I
I
mean,
do the same thing,
you
but
did the same.
welcome to
I
my
remember
mountain
going to
perch.
yeah, I went to some event and it was, oh man, it's a tough crew. It's like him and Rappaport were
Oh,
talking about the Knicks and the Nets. And this was at Barclays. he was there like
I mean, they're
just kind of
old
like, all right,
friends.
I'm a New York City basketball guy, and they were clearly Knicks fans who were sort of cosplaying as just New York City basketball guys,
Uh-huh. Fair enough.
and which at this point I feel like the Nets probably would not do. They've become a little more judicious with like who do they reach out to because they know some people are so associated with the Knicks. But yeah, I thought Spike there as like a Liberty fan is actually totally reasonable because they used to play in the Garden.
I
Like I think
totally.
there's a little bit of a because they used to belong to Dolan and he sold them for all of his incredible accomplishments of late. He sold them at the exact wrong time.
I mean, he had them playing in Westchester. Uh,
Yeah. Then they got Sabrina. They moved to the Barclays and they became a powerhouse.
but
And
he was the Rosas, right? Like he's the one that tanked enough to get them their star player that courts the other star players to come.
yeah, so they did well on that. So anyway, yes, Liberty to the finals. There's some great shirts available. Sudeikis does not have one. If you're friends with him, you should hook him up. Speaking of the faces of basketball, good news for you as a Halliburton fan who loves Puma. Mr. Puma, we call you. Quola Puma.
I was hanging out with you and one of our Nike buddies, and I was like, I live in Bed-Stuy now. I see an enormous amount of Pumas, like randomly. And it's those clunky ones that are kind of like the Balenciagas a little bit. There's mismatched colors, there's patches everywhere, and they're kind of on the bigger side. And I'm like, in a strange turn of events, I see those on 1 out of 10 people. It's weird.
Have they taken the role of like the Fila disruptor or whatever it was called?
Maybe they're affordable. They're kind of fancy looking. They don't look bad. I kind of enjoy them. But like, it's a thing around here. Like, people wear Pumas.
So Puma has inked Tyrese Halliburton, the star of the Indiana Pacers, to a enormous long-term deal, whatever that is. The details that I did not see were announced, but those are the descriptive terms, if nothing else, to be the face of the future. This is who Puma is going to build around. Which, if I'm LaMelo Ball, I'm like, hey, what about me? But anyway, but those are their two main guys right now. They have some other athletes, but those are the two main ones. How does that stack up? Like if you're Puma, you're trying to, get a toehold, no pun intended, into the NBA game. How are you feeling about Halliburton and LaMelo as riding? Those are the horses you're going to ride into battle.
And Aiton and Brianna Stewart. A plus 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 plus. They're jokerfying the sneaker game. Who are the players you immediately think of as the jokers in the NBA? It's got to be
Well,
Halliburton
the one
and
with
LaMelo, right?
LaMelo with all the Joker tattoos.
There you
So
go.
he's definitely
Shout
the
out to
Joker.
Pablo's podcast, right? And like Halliburton, who is like the ultimate troll. He's wiry like the Joker. All they have to do is put some white makeup on him, which might be dicey in 2024, but Joker makeup. It could be like Heath Ledger style, like crazy, scary. Put him in a purple suit. Put some crazy looking shoes on him, Jokerfied shoes. And then you have a yin and yang forming between Anta and Puma.
So they're just going Joker. They don't even have the Batman Joker dynamic within
No,
Puma.
they are the Joker.
They're just Jokerfied.
Yeah,
God,
we're
no, I
doing
understand.
brands as a whole, characters in the universe.
And like outside of Nike, which obviously is like a different plateau than these other brands who are searching to become, as you said, a rival.
Mm-hmm.
New Balance is an interesting one too, because they're actually kind of going the Batman route. They're going very, very conventional. It's like they've got their combo guards. Like that's their deal.
Who do they have right now?
So they have Levine, they have Maxey, they have Jamal Murray, they have DeJounte Murray. I think they have DeJounte. They definitely have Jamal for sure. They have Cameron Brink, and they just got Cooper Flag. That's their big
Huge. Right,
signing.
right.
They went and battled to get with Nike to get Cooper Flag, and from what I've heard, the advantage they had was that he is from Maine, and they're like a northeastern brand. They felt local, so they got him. That was a bold move. And then they have Kawhi, who's been there forever and was really their first foray into basketball, which was an oddity at the time, but they've used that Kawhi leverage in order to expand their basketball program. But again, that's a really conventional group, not like those jokers over at Puma.
Man, I was thinking about Cooper Flag. Like, you know how people are like, oh, I grew up on RX Nephew. And you're like, right, we've talked about this, right? Like, it's like, your ages 16, 17, 18 were probably formative for you in the way they were just a blip for old heads like us. And Cooper Flag, I bet you, is just like hearing all these voices around him on his team being like, Nike is the gold standard here. Nike, Jordan brand, these beautiful ads, tradition, the NBA. New Balance doesn't really have a dog in this fight. And he's like, but New Balance has kind of been great my whole life. I'm like, yeah, for the last 5 years, New Balance has been ubiquitous, right? With like cool kids and good designs and good reissues and dad shoe stuff. Cooper Flag is probably like, oh, when I'm just chilling at home, I'm wearing New Balance because those are what the fire shoes are, right?
Right, right. Well, also to your point, someone says, "Well, look, I've been wearing Hokas since I was a kid,
Yeah,
so they really resonated with me." It's like,
we're
well, how do
there,
you?
right?
Oh, I'm 19.
Yeah,
Okay, well, that timeline actually checks out. It's like 6, 7 years ago
yeah,
when they first started being worn, or even were known as a sneaker.
yeah.
You were 12, 13 years old. So yeah, you were raised on Hokas.
Or even after they
I
blew up 4 years, 3 years ago when we were wearing them in
Yeah,
Williamsburg, that someone's like, I grew up on Hokas.
dude, that was like 6 years ago, man.
Williamsburg?
Yeah,
God dang. Oh, right across from the Australian coffee shop?
yeah.
The pelting water droplets on the skylight?
Yes, that was 6 years ago. Time really moves.
The wine fridge in the common area?
Yeah, that's the one.
I remember.
Um, you recall that? Oh man, still got that wine fridge.
Yeah, what's in it right now? Come on, open. Tell
Two
us what's
bo-
in your
two
fridge.
bottle two bottles of
What
wine.
are you holding? I saw Jimmy Butler's a wine collection online on YouTube this week. What are you holding?
Oh yeah, maybe I'll have to do the wine fridge reveal.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a bottle of red and a bottle of white. Like just for
bottle of
the
red.
perfect
Yeah.
assortment. One red, one white, and also it's like the Polish flag, which I think is really good for Greenpoint.
When's Despot gonna come over and recreate the performance at MSG with a nice bottle of red in an Italian restaurant, aka your house?
Whenever he wants. That's
He is the guy. He's
that's what
always
you get.
invited in my house. So whatever.
That's what you get when you coach a team to the second round of the playoffs and the Cookies Hoops Classic. Those are the privileges that come with that kind of postseason success.
Is it the same privilege you have as a son of an NBA great looking for a job?
I think it's exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's identical, and just as Despot made his Cookies Classic debut, so did Bronny, the son of a basketball player named LeBron James, who you may have heard of. They made their preseason, I guess. Did they ever? I'm sorry. Did they ever play on the court together?
Not as
Out there?
professionals. The last night was the first time.
Right, no, I'm right. I know that, but did they play
Oh,
on the court at the same time yesterday? Did they ever
yeah.
put them on the floor together?
Yes. Yeah. They were together. They were standing next to each other as the clock was going.
And Bronny, I saw his stat line was he didn't score. He had a couple rebounds.
Mm-hmm. He's
What? How do you look out there?
not ready, young, in over his head. Not really a big deal. Other stuff happening. I don't really care about preseason. Um, a lot of ire. We're in the age of thinking about Donald Trump, nepotism, We're basically voting for the same political parties of last election, which is
Hmm.
or political tickets of last election. Um, Genetics and nepotism is like more a part of our lives than ever, whether it be sports, politics, science, whatever. It was fucking beautiful to see, man. I don't know if it's because I've gotten soft as a father, I'm sure. Seeing LeBron James kind of at the end of his prime with his son in an NBA preseason game, fucking beautiful, man. It's awesome. I don't know if he deserves to be there, whatever. Somehow he got there. He pulled the levers and he got there. I was moved. I thought that was really, really cool.
Look, my main thing is that Bronny seems cool. He seems well adjusted considering the odds of him being well adjusted might be low
Really? You think
considering
so?
his background. I mean, LeBron seems pretty well adjusted himself, so that's a big benefit. But just to be raised with that kind of spotlight and that kind of wealth and that kind of fame and that kind of everything, he seems pretty chill.
I'm a fan. Whatever. Yeah, he seems like a nice kid.
Yeah, no, and I think that's while there is still some animosity to the idea that, you know, his father has ushered him into the NBA. We all know that's the case. This is true, but Bronny seems so chill that you can't be mad at him.
He's a second round pick.
So,
Whatever.
right, but if Bronny was a dickhead or seemed or was annoying,
A Joker.
he'd be
Yeah.
if he was a Joker, but he's not. He's just a young Batman.
He works for Commissioner Gordon. He's
He's literally Bruce Wayne.
yeah. He's aspiring to be Robin #7.
He's the son of the guy who built Wayne Industries.
Yeah. He's just a company man. I mean, LeBron is annoying. It's hard to be famous. I'm a fan of him on the court more than I am off the court, but he's done some great things. I don't know. Like that family seems extremely well adjusted and chill and not controversial. So like this is more interesting than like this is Vampire Weekend giving you something interesting, whether that be good or bad, playing those covers up for debate. But this version of the Lakers is more fun than if they just drafted the rights to a European player that they stashed, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm interested in seeing if Bronny gets out the court.
This is awesome.
But if there's one, I think it's cool. But you know, there is one version of a podcast that is better every single time, that constantly improves. And that's Cookies Hoops, Andrew.
I'm raising that
And they
$20 trophy up over my head. You can't see it, right?
Are you Elon leaping off the World Trade Center right
No,
now?
I'm holding the trophy of this episode.
No. Another perfect pod. Cookies.
I love cookies.
Majestic.
Cookies. I love cookies.